We're into the end game here. Today, we'll talk about the important issue of ethics in research. Ethics and RCR, or the responsible conduct of research, are important for compliance under any funded research. You've seen that in the course of your solicitation reviews, but even more, they are important in research regardless of the compliance rules. In the UNC system and many other schools nationwide, the CITI program, or Collaborative Institutional Training Initiative, is used for online training in ethics. Be sure to register at citiprogram.org and get your training. It's tailored to your campus's particular needs, so I'll rely on you to take care of that for the details. For now, we'll just go over some important ethics guidelines that you might run into in grant writing. Now, first off, keep in mind that each of your campuses has an RCR officer available to consult with you and give training on the ethics of research. Not only will they help you with reviewing your RCR components of your research, they are also a valuable source for training and information. So after you review this module, you should seriously consider talking to your campus RCR folks for more information on your particular research. The priority in a grant is both complying and documenting that compliance for your sponsor and the public. It should be easy for the POs to find information on your compliance plans and ethical protocols in your research. But even more than compliance, ethical research is simply the right thing to do to protect yourself, your research subjects, and your team. So let's go over some key parts. Human subjects research is probably the best known RCR issue, and there are a lot of discussions about changes to the human subjects practices recently, so keep an eye out for changes to specific rules. I'm just going to go over the broad principles for this and other issues so you have a sense of what to keep an eye out for. Consult with your Institutional Review Board, or IRB, to make sure that your research plan is fully compliant with all current ethical rules, and document that compliance in your grant. So with humans, there are three broad principles to keep in mind. These have been developed over years of international consideration of past concerns about abuses of human subjects. And the three principles are respect for persons, beneficence, and justice. Treat your research subjects with respect for them as persons with autonomy. Keep in mind the risks and benefits of research, and be fair to all persons in and out of your study. We usually represent the principle of respect for persons by using informed consent. Humans in your study should have all necessary information to consent to research, with full understanding presented to them in an understandable and non-coercive way. And things to keep in mind there are that you have to make your consent forms fully understandable by participants. And this could mean that a professional translation is needed, or that you need to write it in a simplified way, or even have a representative there to consult with the participant. It also means that you can't reward them in a way that might force them to participate, like making a grade depend on working on your particular project, or giving them so much money they can't afford to not participate. We usually represent the principle of beneficence with a risk-benefit analysis, minimizing potential risks and maximizing potential benefits. Try to anticipate all of the risks and do what you can to avoid or account for them, including risks to privacy and psychological distress, as well as physical dangers to health and person. For example, if you were studying students' cheating behaviors, you would need to find a way to make sure that even if your data were disclosed somehow, then none of the students that told you about cheating would be identifiable and suffer consequences. That includes penalties such as getting kicked out of school, but also psychological trouble like extreme embarrassment in front of their peers and teachers. We usually represent the principle of justice with fair and equitable recruitment. Everyone has to be represented without preference or disdain. You can't recruit students just because of convenience. You can't recruit prisoners because you think it's okay to put prisoners at risk. Or you can't recruit faculty because you like them and think they're smarter and more worthy of being part of research. The population involved in your research, the whole population, as much as is practical, should have access to both risks and benefits from it. Humans are also protected by biosafety and radiation protocols. These protections are for you and your team, as well as the humans around you and the environment. If you work with bioactive agents, chances are you already have training in this. But remember that you need to keep your manuals up to date, your training current, your safety equipment checked and available, and your facilities appropriate for the control of biological agents you work with. The same goes for radiation, both in equipment that creates radiation like radio frequency devices and also with radioactive substances and chemicals. Proper storage and handling is essential with these things. Again, you probably already have this training if you work with these things, but sometimes tech people don't realize that devices are included. So even if you work with non-ionizing radiation producing devices like lasers, you should have training on their proper storage and so on. So make sure those compliance rules are current and put that certification in your grant application. Now, if you work with animals, you're probably familiar with the IACUC, the Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee. Like the IRB for human research, the IACUC will help train and oversee the ethical handling of animals. Confirm your plan with them and get their feedback, then include that information in your grant. With animals, we have 3 broad principles that are different from the 3 with humans. Those are called the 3 R's. Reduce the number of animals to be used, replace animal models with other methods whenever possible, and refine techniques to minimize distress to animals used in research. So use your statistical model to determine the absolute fewest animals you can use, or even avoid animals and work with cultured cells or other approaches whenever possible. And consistently review your animal care to refine your protocols and approaches to minimize distress, stress, and suffering by animals. Respect your animal subjects and their hard work for society. Okay, those are the biggest ethical issues. There are some other sort of ethics-grounded compliance issues to consider too. For example, there are export rules on what countries we can share information with from the US. That includes collaboration, peer review assistance, correspondence, and anything else that might disclose to an unacceptable country. Now, you don't want to risk your research being used for a harmful purpose in a country that doesn't follow good ethics and privacy, of course. Another concern for ethical risks has to do with finances. Research is often not very profitable, but occasionally we find or build something with a lot of economic potential. And for that reason, there are COI, or conflict of interest processes, to prevent any concerns about researchers allowing monetary or personal motives to lead them to poor research choices. So if you think there may be financial gains in the future from your project, you can make money from it, but you have to follow rules. Talk to your tech transfer office and the COI folks in your responsible conduct office, and they can help you minimize risks and maximize your interests when money is involved. Let's talk a little bit about other social responsibility too. This is less compliance as good research practice. Mentoring is very important in research. First off, as you become a senior researcher, you're expected to give back to your research community and your juniors. So consider your role at that stage as a mentor, someone who can guide new researchers in their professional development. If there are postdocs on your team, your grant may need a formal postdoctoral scholar mentoring plan to be included as a supplementary document in your grant. But even if not, be considerate of your juniors. If you have student researchers in your lab, make sure that they are learning something, not just entering data or spinning a centrifuge. As you move up in experience, help others in their professional development too. It builds the whole research community, and you'll even find that they improve your research too as they learn with you. Another final area of social responsibility. I'd be a bad librarian if I didn't mention information ethics. Whether it's data or words, your information should always be accurate, reproducible, and able to be traced to its source. Anything you write is assumed to be your words unless otherwise indicated. So if information or words or even an idea comes from another person, you should indicate that, even if the words are your own, but the idea is someone else's. Indicate that with citations. The citation provides a roadmap back to the source. If it's data, your methods section should describe how you got it clearly. In the case of your own data, anything that affects its representation, including inclusion and exclusion, should be described. So if you trim outliers, say so. Or if you interpolate, say so. And the same goes for secondary analyses of others' data. Say how you used it and where it's from, as well as any exclusions or other changes you made. Any reader should be able to read your grant and your reports and tell where which parts come from. If I picked any random sentence, I should be able to trace it to the right authors, your team, or an outside source, and talk to that person for more information if I want to. Okay, so that gives you an overview of ethics. Remember to get your compliance documented and put it in your grant clearly. We need to see that compliance reflected, even if only briefly. So talk to your RCR officer. I talked to mine here at NCA&T, and they are always very helpful. So a special thanks to Donna Eaton, Director of Research Compliance and Ethics here at NCA&T, and her team, Kat Collins and Tanya Hargett, for their RCR brilliance. I can't begin to say how valuable those Office of Research contacts are to you as a grant writer. So talk to your RCR team. And thank you for listening. This has been Nina presenting Lesson 10 of the Fundamentals of Grantsmanship.